Good day, everyone. I am Christine Julia Naligato, along with my other members, Mark Ray Manabat, Joanna Eliza Padawang, and Zahara Mesa Basa. Together, we are the Group 8 presenting our lesson, which is all about biometrics. So the contents of our presentation includes its definition, importance, history, the types of biometric authentication and the devices used for them, and its pros and cons. So for the definition of the biometrics, it refers to the measurement of physical characteristics such as fingerprints, DNA, or retinal patterns for use in verifying the identity of individuals. So biometric allows the recognition of particular characteristics of an individual using mathematical algorithm and biometric data. There are several types of biometric identification and the devices used for them, which will be discussed later. So the main reason biometric systems were created is that they help track criminals before. So the importance of biometrics. So biometrics is the most suitable means of identifying and authenticating individuals in a reliable and fast way through unique biological characteristics. So these characteristics are the most convenient way to authenticate and identify people because they cannot be borrowed, stolen, forgotten, or forged. For example, twins may share the same DNA, but their fingerprints and other characteristics differ, which is a great way to tell them apart. And this is one great proof of the importance of using biometric systems. So for the history of biometrics, we have Mr. Mark Ray Manabat.
Thank you, Ms. Julian, for that explanation. Now let's proceed to the history of biometrics. Next slide, please. So while they might not be prehistoric, biometrics have been around for thousands of years. Throughout the last few millennia, biometrics have gone from rough methods of classification to being authenticators of identity using a wide range of modalities. Biometrics can be dated as far as 500 BC in Babylonian Empire. Next slide, please. So the biometric identification system was started in 1800 in Paris, France by Alphonse Bertillon. So he was a French police officer and biometrics researcher who applied the anthropological technique of anthropometry to law enforcement, creating an identification system based on physical measurements like height and weight and such. Anthropometry was the first scientific system used by the police to identify criminals. Next slide, please. Fingerprinting followed suit in 1880s by Edward Henry, denoted for its development. So he developed a system for classifying fingerprints that is still in use today. So one of his work is in next slide, please. The Henry classification system. It is a long-standing method by which fingerprints are sorted by physiological characteristics for one-to-many searching, which became accepted as the sole official method employed in the identification of habitual criminals in the country. Henry's system relied upon dividing fingertip impressions into 4 types: the arcs, loops, whorls, and composites. So this is the example of the system. Next slide, please. In the 1960s, semi-automated facial recognition methods. So it is developed requiring administrators to analyze facial features within an image and extract usable feature points. Much more manual than the ones we can use to open our phones. So this is the example of it. Next slide, please. So by 1969, fingerprint and facial recognition was so widely used in the law enforcement. The FBI put funding towards developing automated process. This was a catalyst for the development of more sophisticated sensors for biometric capture and data extraction. While in the 1980s, study for speech recognition technology. The National Institute of Standards and Technology developed a speech group to study and push forward the process for speech recognition technology. These studies are the basis of the voice command and recognition system that we use today. In the 1985, the concept that much like fingerprint arises in 1994. The first iris recognition algorithm was patented. It is unique to everyone, and it proposed in 1994. The first iris recognized algorithm was patented. In addition, it was discovered that blood vessels pattern in the eyes were unique for everyone and were used for authentication as well. So this is the irises information about it. Next slide, please. In 1991, facial detection technology was developed, making real-time recognition possible. By the 2000, hundreds of biometric authentication recognition algorithms were functional. Dito na nag-start yung pag-publicize ng biometrics. In the past, it was only used in government setting like a police department to identify the criminals. Now, they were sold to commercial products and were implemented at large-scale events. So this is one of the examples of those commercial products. The world's first fingerprint phone was Pantech GI100. Next slide, please. The second example is in 2013, the Apple company included fingerprint to unlock the iPhone. Next slide, please. And lastly, the biometric for attendance system. It is usually used in school and company set. So that's all for it for me. Now let's proceed to the next reporter.
Thank you, Mr. Manabat. So now we will be discussing the types of biometric authentication and the devices used for them. Next slide, please. So all biometric modalities are basically two types, physiological and behavioral. Under physiological are iris, face, fingerprint, DNA, hand geometry, and vascular vein. And for the behavioral, these are the voice, keystrokes, signature, and gait. Next slide, please. So when we say physiological, these are based on the analysis of the invariable physiological characteristics of a person. Companies often collect and store physical biometric data in order to authenticate identities for all sorts of uses, security being the most obvious. Next slide, please. So first is the iris. The iris is the colored circular segment at the front of the eye that contains the pupil at its center. The iris recognition technology uses the unique patterns of the colored tissue that form the iris. So the iris cameras are used to recognize an individual's unique identity by analyzing the random, unique patterns which visibly appear inside their eye from a certain distance. So these patterns are captured by a camera operating in near-infrared wavelengths. The first iris cameras had to be close to the eyes, but not in contact with them, in order to record sufficient detail, but technological advances and now allow cameras to be placed several feet away and capture the irises of those on the move. These iris scanners or cameras are used at some airports at security screenings, passport control, facility access control, computer login, ATMs, and grocery stores. Next slide, please. So second is the face. The face biometrics use aspects of the facial area to verify or identify an individual. This face recognition technique records face images and analyzes the facial characteristics like the distance between the eyes, nose, mouth, and jaw edges. So these measurements are broken into facial planes and retained in a database, further used for comparison. A biometric face scanner is used to identify a person by taking measurements of a person's face. In the process of biometric identification, according to the shape of the face, a 3D or 2D image of the face is built using a high-resolution video camera or this biometric face scanner. We can use this biometric through mobile phones where we can scan our face, even in workstations to monitor progress and eliminate time lag. Next slide, please. So for the fingerprints, these are formed by the raised papillary ridges that run across the skin surface. This is the most widespread technology used in biometric recognition systems. So this technology is based on the uniqueness of the papillary patterns on the people's fingers. The most common method is through optical scanning. Another method uses thin film transistor or TFT technology. And the third method uses sound waves to capture fingerprints below the surface of the skin. And for fingerprint scanners, this digitize these images into unique digital templates, which can be used to match against existing records. So these are the most current biometric applications that use either a scanner, where the finger is placed on or rolled across a platen, or a contactless method that captures the required detail of a proximal distance. This method is becoming increasingly popular because of the potential hygiene issues associated with multiple required cooperation from the subject. So there are several ways you can utilize this authentication method, including the authorization into buildings or restricted areas, building security procedures, user login by replacing passwords through smart applications, and confirm online payments on donations. Next slide, please. So for the DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid, it is a chemical substance found in each of the approximately 100 trillion cells within the human body. So the DNA biometric is quite different from standard biometric modalities. It requires tangible physical sample and could not be done in real time. It is a recognition technology with very high accuracy. The polymerase chain reaction or PCR machine, this duplicate DNA segments, allowing for numerous tests. You can run tests one after the other without disrupting the original sequence. So the DNA is currently used mostly in forensics applications for identifying people, and its testing is a relatively mature and dynamic technology that is widely used and familiar to the public. Next slide, please. For the hand geometry, these are biometric systems that incorporate the salient features of finger geometry, but also include the surfaces of the hand itself and its side profile. There are various methods that are used to measure the hand. These methods are most commonly based either on mechanical or optical principle, and the latter ones are much more common today. The hand scanner, like your fingerprints, the palm of your hand, is also unique to you. A biometric hand scanner or hand geometry system identifies the person by the palm of their hand. There are images that are taken while the hand is kept palm down on a support plate and kept in position by the use of guide pegs. The length, width, the thickness, and surface area of the individual's hand is measured and recorded. And there are several images of the same hand that are often taken in order to produce a single stored template that has sufficient detail for identification purposes. The hand geometry is used for the identification and recognition of a person. Next slide, please. And lastly, for the vascular vein, these are the arrangement of veins in fingers and hands, form a unique pattern that can be used to identify an individual. This technology uses pattern recognition techniques that is based on images of samples of human veins located in the subcutaneous part of the finger. The vein templates cannot be faked because they are located under the skin surface, and the principle of finger vein recognition is to use infrared rays to capture samples of finger veins and match them to templates. The vein recognition is used as a biometric scan of a person's veins in the user's finger or palm. This recognition is one of the many forms of biometrics that are used for identification and verification. This method can be more secure than fingerprint recognition because veins, which lie under the skin, are much harder to forge than fingerprints. Additionally, these vein recognition scanners can be faster and more compact than traditional fingerprint scanners. Next slide, please. For the behavioral type of biometrics, this will be discussed by Ms. Sabasa.
So let us proceed to behavioral biometrics. So when we say behavioral biometrics, it refers to identify an individual based on their behavior or activities. So behavioral biometrics are often used for cybersecurity purposes. It distinguishes between the legitimate users and cybercriminals by identifying them based on their online activity and interactions. So, behavioral biometrics also examines the patterns of human activity to evaluate whether whether this someone is committing fraud or identity theft. It also distinguishes whether the action is being initiated by a human or it is a part of automated attack. So next, first behavioral type of biometric is voice. So when we say voice, a person's voice is the way they sound or they speak. Is a result of combination of distinctive physical attributes and distinctive behavioral attributes. So the human voice consists of creating wavelengths that can be measured. So those voice are being collected by the software and employs artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques to produce a massive amount of data derived from the factors of modulation of speech, tones, accent, frequency, and etc. So these elements will enable the system to create reference template or blueprint of the voice that can be used to authenticate the speaker in a subsequent transactions. So one of the technologies used for voice is voice scanners. Voice scanners is applied to allow device to understand, translate, and interact with a voice command or questions. Like for example, when we are talking to smart speakers or mobile device, we can also talk with domestic appliances and the most popular virtual assistant such as Siri and others. So the next is keystrokes. When we say keystrokes, it is an action involved in typing on a keyboard that can be used to identify the typist once a reference session of their typing has been recorded for comparisons. So these actions involve a keyboard to identify the reference sessions of their typing has been recorded for comparison purposes. So individual keyboard operators can be differentiated by the characteristics such as the time taken to be select, depress, and release a certain keys or sequence of keys and the underlying dynamics and rhythm of the keystrokes and the common recurring errors. Next, the signature. So the signature refers to use of handwritten signatures to authenticate paper documents as long has a long history, but in more recent times, the application of modern electronic biometric techniques has automated on the process. So the manner of so the signature is a manner of a person that signs his or her name is known to be unique is yo- is known to be unique. So the signatures are straightforward and expresses real expression of the distinctive variances in human hand geometry. So sample collections for this biometric involves subject cooperation and the use of writing instruments. So signature are the type of behavioral biometric that changes over time and impacted by the subject's physical and mental state. A signature, with the signature technology uses signature verification system or signature recognition system that may measure the pressure of velocity of the point of the stylus or the point of the, the signature across the sensor pad in the addition of the basic shape of the sign name. And the next, gait. So gait refers to the every human has a specific way of walking and running, and factors such as subject's overall physique, stride, and speed of movement that can be captured for analysis. So when every person walks and runs, okay, ulit. Individuals walks and runs in a unique manners. So the gait recognition system uses cameras that can collect and analyze the factors such as the subject's overall physique, the stride, and the stride length and width, speed of movement that created by the joints of the hip, knee, and ankle, as well as the angles of the torso and thighs and feet. So the individual can thus identified by their gait style, allowing the biometric into one-to-one verification and one-to-many verification or identification to be employed alongside with the other applications such as medical research and diagnostic testing for sports science and so on. For the next reporter, may we call on again Miss Arigato for the next topic.
So thank you for that. Despite how widely used biometric systems are, they still have some pros and cons. So first is its pros. Um, the first one is it has high security assurance. So because biometrics rely on fingerprints, irises, and other unique human traits, they may be a better solution for account security than passwords. When used in conjunction with other kinds of multi-factor authentication or MFA, it adds another layer of protection that makes it more difficult for outsiders to breach. Because biometric verification often involves the presence of a live, breathing human, it can be difficult for AI or other types of technology to fake it. Second is it's easy to use. So biometric technology is simple to use. So both Android and iOS devices employ various types of biometric technologies, such as fingerprint and face scanning, so which are already built into their settings. Users merely need to set it up and use it to access their devices instead of inputting their passcodes. Next is it is easy to integrate. So many software applications use biometrics, and because it's available across multiple platforms, it's relatively easy to secure your accounts in just one tap. And last one is it's difficult to fake. As previously stated, biometric technology is quite difficult to forge and spoof. Facial patterns, irises, and fingerprints are tough to copy and may require more work than necessary. While certain phones can be unlocked using photographs, consumer technology firms may avoid this by enhancing their overall technology. The next is the cons of using biometric systems. So first is the data breaches. Biometric technology, like other types of data, is valuable because many businesses increasingly rely on biometrics and keep data related to them. They may become targets for malicious third parties. Next is the user's privacy. While biometrics are generally safe, they can be exploited when placed in the hands of persons with harmful intent. They may turn your biometrics into data and sell it for a profit. Furthermore, biometrics may be compromised as a result of an individual's negligence. For example, there is a TikTok trend where individuals record a video of their eyes where its pattern is clearly visible. Other people might use it to imitate the owner or obtain information about them. Next is the cost. So companies will have to invest substantial money to ensure software and hardware are up to date, to establish and preserve a good security profile with the use of biometric systems. And last, it might not always be accurate. So while biometric systems are typically reliable, problems are still possible to surface. Some smartphone users have stated that it is difficult to unlock their phones when there is dirt on their fingers, which may be irritating, while others have claimed that wearing glasses has hindered them. So that's all for the content of our presentation. Again, we are the Group 8. Thank you for your time and attention.